Armin Khanna had built an empire before most men his age had figured out their purpose. As the founder and CEO of Khanna Global Technologies, his name appeared regularly in the pages of Forbes and the Economic Times. He was photographed beside ministers, investors, and global innovators. Conferences in Singapore, London, and New York competed for his presence. But none of that followed him home. His mansion in South Mumbai stood like a glass palace facing the Arabian Sea, marble floors imported from Italy, chandeliers from Paris, walls decorated with abstract art worth millions. Yet despite the grandeur, the house echoed with a hollow stillness. Every footstep sounded louder than it should. Every room felt too large for one man. That evening, Armin returned earlier than usual. The security gates slid open silently, and the driveway lights flickered on automatically. No one waited at the entrance. No warm welcome. No curious voice asking about his day. Inside, he found Ria in the living room, dressed elegantly in a silver gown, scrolling through her phone. She barely looked up. "You're home early," she said, her tone flat. "I thought we could have dinner together," Armin replied, loosening his tie. She checked the time. "I have a charity preview at 8. I assumed you'd still be at the office." There it was again, that assumption. That distance. They had once shared dreams in a tiny apartment when Armin's startup was just an idea scribbled on whiteboards. They used to celebrate small wins with street food at midnight. Back then, ambition had brought them closer. Now success seemed to have built a silent wall between them. "I miss us," Armin said quietly. Ria sighed, standing up to adjust her earrings. "You're being sentimental again. We've grown up, Armin. This is life." Life. The word sounded like a verdict. Before leaving, she paused only long enough to say, "Don't wait up." The door closed with a soft click that felt heavier than a slam. Armin walked toward the balcony, staring at the restless sea below. The city lights shimmered, alive and vibrant, while his own home felt frozen in time. He wondered when exactly love had turned into obligation. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. "Sir." Mira's voice was gentle from behind him. She stepped onto the balcony carefully, holding a tray with tea. Steam curled into the cool evening air. She kept her gaze respectful, never intrusive. "I noticed you hadn't eaten," she said. "You shouldn't skip meals." Armin almost smiled. "Thank you, Mira." She placed the cup on the small glass table and turned to leave, but hesitated. "Sir, if you don't mind me saying, the sea looks calm from far away," she said softly. "But it's never still inside." Her words lingered after she walked away. For months, no one had noticed the storm within him. Not colleagues, not friends, not his own wife. Yet a young woman with no wealth, no power, and no social status had sensed it in a single glance. Armin wrapped his hands around the warm cup. For the first time that evening, he felt something other than emptiness. Not love, but understanding. And in a house filled with luxury, that small moment of respect felt priceless. The days following that stormy evening on the balcony revealed more truths than Armin had expected. Life with Ria had always been complicated, but he had ignored the signs for far too long, assuming wealth and shared history would keep them tethered. Now, the cracks in their marriage were no longer invisible, they were widening. One morning, as Armin walked through the sunlit hallway of his mansion, he overheard Ria speaking to a stylist over the phone. "Yes, I'll be there in Paris next week." "Armin doesn't mind," she said casually, her tone dismissive. "He's always busy anyway." Always busy. The words stung more than they should. It wasn't the trips, the parties, or even the attention from other men, it was the blatant indifference. She had stopped caring about what he felt, what he wanted, or even whether he existed in her world at all. Armin tried to bring it up later during breakfast. The table was set immaculately, with silver cutlery and imported delicacies, yet the warmth of a shared meal was absent. "Ria, do you even notice me anymore?" he asked gently, his fingers tracing the rim of his coffee cup. She barely looked up, scrolling through her phone. "Notice you, Armin, I see you every day. But you've changed. You're dramatic." Dramatic. The word struck him like a blade. Once, she had admired his ambition, his emotional intensity, the way he threw himself into everything with heart and soul. Now, that same intensity had become a flaw in her eyes. After she left for her day of fashion meetings and networking events, Armin retreated to his study. The room was silent except for the ticking of the antique clock he had inherited from his grandfather. He leaned back in his chair and stared at the city skyline, feeling the loneliness settle deeper into his chest. It was Mira who broke the silence. She entered the study carrying a small tray of snacks and a glass of water. "You've been sitting here for hours, sir. Please eat something," she said softly, placing the tray beside him. Armin looked up. Her presence was a quiet comfort, not intrusive, not demanding. She had a way of noticing the smallest details, the way he rubbed his temples, the heaviness in his shoulders, without ever asking for explanations. "Thank you, Mira. You always know when to show up," he said, his voice tinged with both gratitude and melancholy. She shrugged gently, a modest smile forming on her lips. "I just do my job. And, sometimes, I think people deserve to be treated with respect." Her words hit harder than he expected. Respect. Something he hadn't felt in years. From his wife, from society, even from himself at times. That evening, as a heavy monsoon rain lashed against the windows, the city lost power. The mansion was plunged into darkness, save for the flicker of candles Mira had thoughtfully lit around the dining hall. The warm glow softened the cold marble floors and high ceilings, creating an intimacy that had been absent for far too long. "You're not afraid of storms?" Armin asked quietly, testing the sound of his own voice. She met his gaze calmly. "Storms pass, sir. They always do. Sometimes they take a while, but eventually, the sky clears." Her words were simple, yet they carried weight. For the first time in months, Armin allowed himself to speak honestly. He admitted the isolation he felt, the frustration of living in a marriage that had become a mere arrangement. Mira listened without interruption, without judgment. When he finished, she said only, "Respect doesn't come from money, sir. It comes from how you make people feel." Armin sank into his chair, staring at the candlelight reflecting in the glass table. He realized, painfully, that wealth and status had never shielded him from loneliness. Love without respect was fragile. Respect without love, perhaps, was the beginning of something far more enduring. And for the first time, he wondered if someone like Mira, quiet, observant, and genuine, might teach him how to rebuild that foundation. The storm outside raged on, but inside, a faint warmth began to grow, one small moment at a time. The fragile equilibrium Armin had been clinging to shattered slowly but decisively over the next few months. Rumors about Ray's closeness with an investor from Dubai began circulating quietly at first, at charity galas, in hushed whispers among mutual friends, and eventually in the gossip columns. Armin initially tried to dismiss them, telling himself that wealth attracted attention, and that his wife's ambitions were part of the life they had built together. But denial became impossible the night he returned home to find Ray's suitcase half-packed. "I'm leaving for Dubai tomorrow morning," she said casually, as if announcing a routine business trip. "Without telling me." Armin's voice was calm but carried a weight of suppressed anger. Rhea shrugged. "You're always busy. You wouldn't have cared anyway." The words were like glass breaking inside him. All the shared history, the laughter, the whispered dreams at midnight, the sacrifices they had made for each other, felt suddenly hollow. The reality was harsher. Rhea had already emotionally checked out, leaving him alone in a mansion that was now just a palace of illusions. When the photographs appeared in tabloids the next week, images of Rhea laughing with the investor on a yacht, champagne glasses in hand, sunlight glinting off Dubai's skyline, Armin felt a pang of betrayal that no amount of wealth could cushion. His colleagues called to express sympathy, but sympathy wasn't what he needed. He needed truth. He needed acknowledgement that his marriage had died, and he deserved honesty. The confrontation came the following evening. Armin found her in the living room, casually scrolling through her phone, dressed in designer clothes as if the world outside their walls had no consequences. "Rhea, is this true?" he asked, keeping his tone steady despite the storm brewing inside him. Rhea didn't flinch. "You and I stopped being husband and wife a long time ago," she said, her words deliberate, detached. "I stayed for the lifestyle, the reputation, the convenience. Don't make this about feelings, it's not." Armin's hands clenched into fists, but he forced himself to stay composed. His empire had taught him discipline, strategy, and restraint, but no amount of business acumen could prepare him for this. For days, he wandered through the mansion like a ghost. Each room reminded him of what had been and what had been lost. The study, once a sanctuary, now felt like a witness to broken promises. The balcony, where he had often sought solace in the waves, seemed colder, emptier. Through it all, Mira remained a quiet constant. She noticed the subtle changes, the way he lingered by the window, staring at the horizon for hours, or how he left meals untouched. She never cried, never commented on the tabloids or the rumors. She simply continued her work with dignity, serving tea, tidying the house, and occasionally offering a soft word of comfort. One afternoon, a member of the staff made the mistake of mocking Mira for defending Armin quietly. "He's just another rich man," the staffer whispered, smirking. Mira's eyes narrowed, but her voice was calm, unwavering. "No, he is a good man. That matters." Armin had never heard anyone speak of him like that, not even his own wife. The realization hit him with startling clarity. Respect was rarer than love, and loyalty and understanding could exist where passion had long died. That night, as he sat alone in the dim light of the study, he understood something fundamental. His marriage had ended, but not because he lacked charm, wealth, or ambition. It ended because love without respect is hollow. And for the first time, he felt a spark of hope in the quiet dignity of someone who saw him as more than a fortune. It was not romance yet, not even friendship, but it was the beginning of something deeper, a foundation built not on social expectations or material wealth, but on mutual respect. And in that realization, Armin found a strange kind of strength, one that neither tabloids, betrayal, nor heartbreak could ever take away. The divorce was finalized quietly, without the extravagant media circus Armin had feared, though the tabloids couldn't resist running stories anyway. He read the headlines with detached amusement, the flash of gossip feeling trivial compared to the relief that pulsed through him. The weight he had carried for years, the burden of pretending that everything was perfect, was finally lifted. For weeks afterward, he wandered through the mansion with a sense of clarity he hadn't experienced in years. Rooms that had once felt suffocating now seemed spacious, open to new possibilities. He rearranged furniture not to impress anyone, but simply because it pleased him. He turned down invitations to glitzy parties, opting instead for quiet dinners and long walks along the sea. Armin also began a transformation that went beyond personal space. He launched the Kana Foundation for Girls' Education, dedicated to providing scholarships and mentoring for underprivileged girls. The project was deeply personal, inspired by the young women he had encountered through Mira's stories of her village and siblings. On the day of the foundation's inaugural event, Armin made an unusual decision. He invited the household staff to attend, something he had never done before. When Mira arrived, she was visibly shocked. "Sir, this isn't necessary," she said, adjusting the modest sari she had chosen for the occasion. "You earned a place here," he said firmly, meeting her gaze. "Not because of your position, but because of your integrity and the respect you've shown me." The event hall was filled with dignitaries, philanthropists, and journalists, yet it was Mira's presence that grounded him. When he spoke from the stage, he acknowledged her publicly. "She reminded me," he said, his voice steady, "that respect is the purest form of connection. In a world obsessed with wealth and appearances, her honesty and courage have taught me more than I could ever learn from any boardroom." The applause was polite, but the real significance lay in Mira's stunned expression. No words could convey the pride and validation she felt, quiet recognition that transcended money, status, or media attention. Later, after the formalities, Armin approached Mira privately. "I want to sponsor your higher education," he said gently. "You've earned this not through luck or circumstance, but through your character." She hesitated. "Sir, I don't know if I can accept. It feels too much." "Not too much," Armin replied. "You've worked hard. You've been honest, and you've made a difference in my life. That's more than enough reason." Years passed. Mira completed her studies in social work, becoming a pillar of the foundation she had once only observed from the shadows. She helped identify girls for scholarships, mentored them, and ensured the projects Armin funded reached those who needed them most. Armin watched her in quiet admiration. Their relationship evolved naturally. Not romance, not dependence, but a profound partnership rooted in mutual respect, understanding, and shared purpose. The billionaire who had once been ignored by love had discovered something far more enduring: the power of respect, the strength of integrity, and the bond formed when someone sees you for who you truly are. Not for your wealth, your title, or your image, but for your humanity. In the quiet strength of a maid who believed in him when no one else did, Armin found a new beginning. And for the first time in years, his home, once a palace of silence, was alive with hope, purpose, and genuine connection.